Alright legends, grab yourself a drink and pull up a chair because this week at the Alternative Pub, we're going to be talking about Roddy Piper, the most punk rock wrestler of all time. Now, before anyone jumps at me in the comments, I'm not suggesting Piper was blasting Discharge and the Exploited up and down the highways of North America in between shows. That would have been fucking cool if he did. Or that he was hanging out with the Ramones at CBGB's whenever he had some downtime. But what I am saying is his attitude, his spirit, the way he carried himself, he was punk as fuck. I mean, before wrestling became polished, before promos were heavily scripted, before corporate branding replaced the chaos, there was a guy in a kilt kicking down the door and yelling, just when they think they know the answers, I change the questions. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into it. Roddy Piper wasn't born into fame. He was born Roderick George Toombs in Canada, and by his own admission, life got rough early. He clashed with authority constantly, got kicked out of school, and left home as a teenager. Not exactly future superstar material. He bounced between jobs, slept wherever he could, and eventually started hanging around wrestling shows because wrestling didn't care where you came from, just whether or not you could survive. And survive, Piper did. Legend says he earned the name Roddy Piper after playing bagpipes at a wrestling event when a scheduled performer didn't show up, which means that one of wrestling's greatest villains basically started as a last-minute fill-in musician, which is kind of a punk rock origin story. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Piper was Canadian, but also aggressively Scottish. Was it authentic? Was it exaggerated? Was it wrestling magic? Fuck yes. And that's the genius. Wrestling thrives on larger-than-life identities, and Piper understood something early on. You don't just need to be the character, you need to believe it harder than anyone else. He turned heritage into mythology, and suddenly crowds weren't watching a wrestler, they were watching a one-man walking riot. Before it was on national TV in the US, pro wrestling lived in the territory days. Regional promotions where survival meant toughness. And Piper thrived in the chaos. He wrestled everywhere. Canada, Portland, Mid-Atlantic, California. In the NWA Hollywood days, he famously feuded with the Guerreros and promised to play the Mexican national anthem on the bagpipes, only to play La Cucaracha instead, which was a spicy move. He also wrestled in Puerto Rico, a territory notorious at the time for having crowds so intense performers genuinely feared riots. Matches there weren't polished spectacles on Netflix that we see the like of today. They genuinely felt dangerous. And it was in this area that Piper learned to weaponize emotion, insult the crowd, stir real anger, and then control it. He wasn't just wrestling, he was conducting chaos. And that unpredictability made him the stuff of legend. By the early 80s, Vince McMahon was transforming pro wrestling into national entertainment through the World Wrestling Federation, and he needed villains. Enter one Roddy Piper. His talk show segment, Piper's Pit, changed wrestling forever. He insulted heroes, mocked celebrities, and blurred the line between performance and reality so well, audiences genuinely hated him. This wasn't a weekly talk show, it was a riot. No script, just Roddy with a mic, getting under everyone's skin. The coconut with snooker, the hair shaving, the insults, it was pure chaos, which in wrestling means you're doing it perfectly. Then came 1985, the gamble that changed wrestling forever, WrestleMania 1. And chef's kiss from me, this is hands down my favorite heel entrance of all time. I could watch this 1,000 times over. In fact, I possibly have. Piper walked in like the final boss of chaos with bagpipes blasting and a fuck you swagger, projecting a kind of heel heat that was next level. Opposite him stood Hulk Hogan and Mr. T, mainstream heroes designed for mass appeal. But Piper, he represented rebellion. He wasn't there to sell toys, he was there to ruin the party. And without a villain that believable, the main event of WrestleMania 1, it just wouldn't have worked. Piper didn't just participate in history, he made audiences emotionally invest in it. Look at that, fresh pine out of nowhere. It's like magic, that is. Anyway, moving on. Then Piper did something almost unheard of at the time. He crossed into film and he actually nailed it. In John Carpenter's They Live, Piper played John Nada, a drifter who discovers that aliens are secretly controlling society. It's anti-consumerist, anti-authority, anti-establishment. Basically, a punk manifesto disguised as sci-fi. And yes, it includes one of cinema's greatest fight scenes, a 6-minute alley brawl over putting on sunglasses that only Roddy Piper could make believable. The role turned him from wrestling star into a cult icon. Ultimately, what made Piper special wasn't championships. It wasn't his win-loss record. It was his attitude. He felt unpredictable. While others played characters, Piper genuinely felt like a guy who had wandered in from outside the system and refused to behave. Piper proved audiences connect most with performers who feel human, flaws and all, and decades later, you can still see his influence on wrestling and with every performer brave enough to be different. Because punk rock isn't about fitting in, it's about refusing to, and nobody refused louder than Rowdy Roddy Piper. To Hot Rod, the most punk rock wrestler of all time. Let me know in the comments, what's your favourite Roddy Piper moment? And anyway, cheers.